So, I know there are plenty of people out there who like to watch The Walking Dead. Or they did. I don't know if they still do. I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a bit of it. I'm working on season 8 right now. Um, but that's actually not the important part. Uh, um, so, anybody who's watched it knows about King Ezekiel. And yeah, okay, he's not really a king, but he is a king. Um, that's a whole other side subject. But anyway, he kept saying something in this episode that kept sticking with me. He might say it in later episodes. Right now, he's distraught. Um, got a bunch of people killed anyway. But he kept saying this thing, and yet I smile. Um, and, you're supposed to infer some sort of meaning to that. And when you're going through some hard times, it's really hard to smile. It really is. I mean, sometimes it's bad enough, it feels physically painful to actually smile. Um, I can tell you that. I've been dealing with that for years. Every smile is fake. Every smile just reminds me of how miserable I am, and so on and so forth. Um, to be honest, my life hasn't really improved that much. I just don't have that constant um, uh, emotional, psychological um, I'm trying to think of the right word. Uh, to put it nicely, discouragement. Um, because of court orders, I have to be very careful what I say. Because I mean, even if it's true, I still can. I'm still not allowed to say anything disparaging about, well, my wife. Yes, the divorce is still ongoing, and I suspect it's going to be ongoing until I have nothing left. Because that's how that works. Anyway. So, and yet I smile. And something he added to that was because of tomorrow. Or I think he added that, or somebody else. No, he added it. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. Reminds me of an old, I guess it's a joke. I don't know. Maybe just a story to convey a message. But it's this man owns a farm, has a son, and I don't want to go through the whole thing because, quite frankly, I don't actually remember the exact words of the whole story. But basically, is something bad happens, and then he says, "Well, we'll see." When somebody says, "Oh, well, that was bad," and he says, "We'll see," and then as a result of that bad thing happening, something good happens. Then somebody says, "Well, that was good," and he says, "Well, we'll see," and it just keeps on going like that, and each good thing causes a bad thing, but each bad thing causes a good thing, and it just keeps going back and forth like a pendulum. So, looking at it through that lens, thinking the bad that's happening can cause some good, and the good that happens can cause some bad, and probably will. What do you really have to be sad about? I mean, I'm losing my kids. I mean, there's no question about that. I have to pay money, an inordinate amount of money, just to be allowed to see my kids for 4 hours a month. That money I don't have. Got to pay child support, which is pretty close to what I make right now, and I'm trying to remedy that before anybody tries to get on my tail about it. First of all, my life's not really your business. I'm just doing this to hopefully help somebody. Yeah, I know I'm making it public, and that technically makes it your business, but I'll live my life how I want. But I am trying to remedy my financial situation because I have dreams, I have aspirations, and they do include my children, whether my rights are taken or not. Because even if my rights are taken, one day the kids will look at the situation and see the truth, regardless of what lies they may be fed. But I got to look at my situation and say, but what about tomorrow? So what do I really have to be sad about? Well, because I'm losing everything? I'm getting ready to lose my bike. Well, one of them. I do have 2 bikes. I know that sounds like excess, but one is for work. Oh, that sounds funny, but it gets 50 miles to a gallon, so say what you want. And the other one is I actually got it for longer trips, and so my wife could ride with me because we both kind of bigger. I weigh 300 pounds, and we wanted something, or I wanted something that'd be comfortable for both of us. And that was supposed to be it. Never got to take a long ride on it. It broke down because, I made a mistake, and it caused some problems. Never mind. So I'm probably going to be losing it. Consequences of a violation of a temporary order, but unfortunately I'm the only one held accountable for those. Anyway, but I lose that bike. What are the consequences of me losing that bike? Well, that means that, okay, yeah, my credit will take a hit, but that's $162 a month that can now go to something else. As long as I don't lose my commuter bike, my smaller bike, it's a Shadow 750. You might have seen it in some of my earlier videos. As long as I don't lose that bike, I'm fine. Because if I lose that bike, I can't work. That's my transportation for work. If I lose that bike, I go to jail. Because I won't be able to pay my child support, period. And yes, I am having trouble keeping up with my child support. They gave me 10 days to come up with the full amount. I asked them to push it back a month, and they said no. So whatever. And what are the consequences of that? I don't know. If I go to jail, what happens? Well, I may not be the most upright person. I am trying to do what's right. I'm trying to be the Christian I was supposed to be in the first place. Yes, I made stupid decisions, and I can't undecide those things. I can't undo those things that I did, but I cannot do them in the future. But if I go to jail, because I miss child support payments and whatever, well, what about Joseph? Yeah, he was more upright than I was, or than I, am. But, his great sin was arrogance. He was prideful. And that's actually what got him thrown in that pit in the first place. His arrogance conjured the wrath of his brothers, and they threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. And for those of you who don't know the story, he sold into slavery by his brothers. I want to say to a man named Potiphar. And while he's there, he's so trustworthy because he's diligent. He does what he's supposed to by God, that Potiphar makes him the head of all the slaves in the house. Well, Potiphar's wife takes a liking to him, and sorry, got a lot of bugs in here. And Potiphar's wife takes a liking to him and makes a move on him. He resists, and when he runs away, she's still got a hold of his tunic and rips it off. Well, she uses that as evidence that he tried to make a move on her. So then Joseph gets thrown in prison. Okay, now we're looking at a parallel. Joseph gets thrown in prison. Of course, he was thrown in prison because a rotten woman couldn't take responsibility or rejection and blamed her actions on him. So he gets thrown in prison, not because of anything he did wrong. And while he's in prison, he ends up in the perfect position. Now, he's interpreting people's dreams. Now, of course, I'm not going to claim anything so grandiose. That's not the point. He interprets people's dreams while he's in there, including one of the guards. And the guard, Daniel's interpretation ended up... Not Daniel's, sorry. Joseph's interpretation ended up being perfectly accurate. Sorry, I shook the camera. I need a tripod or something. Anyway. Well, Pharaoh has a dream. And none of his people, none of his soothsayers or wise men or anybody can interpret the dream. So he yells out basically, like, is there anybody in all my kingdom who can interpret this dream? And so that guard, whose dream that Joseph interpreted, says, I know somebody. So then Pharaoh said, bring him to me. This guard goes, gets him. And Pharaoh tells Joseph, I'm sorry. I want to say, I could be wrong about this. It'd be a good idea to read these yourself, but I can't actually remember where it is. Read the whole Bible. You never know. You might find something interesting. Anyway, I want to say he didn't actually tell him what his dream was. He said, I want you to tell me what my dream means, but I'm not going to tell you what my dream is. Because if you can tell me what my dream is and what it means, then I'll know that you're telling the truth. So Joseph tells the Pharaoh what his dream was. And Pharaoh said, yeah, that was my dream. And then he tells him what it meant. And that was whenever he made the prophecy that there'd be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And they had to prepare for the 7 years of famine during the 7 years of plenty. But the point of it all is the bad things that happened to him put him exactly where he needed to be to not only help that prison guard, but to save all of his people. He ended up being, because of that dream interpretation, he ended up being the second in command in all of Egypt. And he saved the Israelites. He saved all of his people from the famine. Because he made the plans, set them in motion to store up all the grains and all the food that was produced during the years of plenty. And if he had resisted, if he had groaned and moaned and complained, chances are his people would have died. Because he was more concerned with where he was. Or he would have been more concerned with where he was than where he's going to be. Or, probably more accurately, who he actually is. I mean, people in general are prone to arrogance. We hear the word narcissist thrown around a lot, but everybody has narcissistic tendencies. I don't care how good you are. Everybody. Preachers, teachers, firefighters, cops, prison guards, judges, lawyers, everyone. There's not a human on this earth that does not have narcissistic tendencies. It's part of our ego. If you didn't have an ego, you wouldn't be a person. You'd be a vegetable. Because that ego is what gives us our self-awareness. But if that ego gets too big, that's when we become narcissistic. Oh, narcissist. That's when we become these people that use others. It looks at people like objects, resources. And yes, I've been accused of being a narcissist. I'm not a narcissist, but I am borderline, which really, unfortunately, isn't a whole lot better. But the good thing about borderline is that there is a capacity for change. Higher capacity for change than narcissism, because the problem with narcissism is the ego is so massive that borderlines are severely resistant to change, some to the point of death. Some will die on their false hill. Not saying that borderlines are great or that they're good. People are people. Something else that's in Fear the Walking Dead. But anyway, people are people. If you have the capacity to look at yourself and say, I'm wrong, I messed up, I really need to fix it, then it doesn't matter what you're labeled as. Even a narcissist can change. I know I'm going off on rabbit trails, but I think this needs to be said. Even a narcissist can change. But the problem is they have to get to that point in their life, which unfortunately most of the time is rock bottom. They have to get to that point in life where they can look at themselves and say, okay, well, this is no one's fault but mine. It can't be anybody else's fault. Unfortunately, most of them never do that, no matter how low they go. It's always someone else's fault. Some borderlines will do that, but most of them, it's not about blaming somebody else. Most of them actually blame themselves for everything. And that's where a lot of their bad behaviors come from, because they blame themselves for the things that happen, to the point of, well, self-harm. Mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. But anyway, the important part of this video is, or the important takeaway for this video is, what do you really have to be upset about? Okay, so your life is falling apart. What about tomorrow? Will it be falling apart tomorrow? It might be. But what about the day after that? It can't fall apart forever. Eventually you'll get to the point where there's nothing left to fall apart. And then what? Are you going to end your own life? Well, it definitely won't get better if you do that. It's impossible for your life to get better if it ends. Now you might say, well, it's impossible to get worse if it ends too. And yeah, you're right. But you don't have the potential to make a positive impact on anyone if you end your life. I've been there. I spent years putting a gun to my head because I believed this world would be better off without me. And I might actually be right about that. But what if I'm wrong? And I won't know until I get to the actual end of it. Till I'm laying there taking my final breaths. Only then will I know whether the world was better without me or not. And I know there are plenty of people out there who hate me, who will say, oh, the world is better off without me. Paul killed Christians for a living for most of his life. He killed Christians for a living. I don't know if it's most of his life, but he killed Christians for a living. Met Jesus on the road. 3 days later, he was preaching to people, making new Christians. The world may look at, and there were a lot of people who hated him for what he had done, didn't trust him because of what he had done. And you know what God said? I have redeemed him. Who are you to question that? And you could be mad at that statement. That's fine. You have the right. But it's not what you've done or who you were that matters. It's what you are now and what you're going to do. If you're going to continue the same rotten behaviors that got you in the position you're in, well, then yeah, you're a rotten person. Until you stop them. Until you change. Me, I don't want to be the same person I was yesterday. Certainly don't want to be the same person I was 25 years ago. I was 14 years old. I was a kid. And it doesn't excuse what I did. And without recognition of what I did and why I did it, there's no capacity to change. That is why it's so important to say, okay, I'm wrong. I messed up. Now I need to change it. That's why admission of guilt is important. People who are incapable of or unwilling to admit guilt are people who cannot change for the better. They can change, but never for the better. Always for the worse. Oh, most of those people don't change. Most of those people stay exactly the same and continue the same patterns they have all their lives. I refuse to stay the same person that I was all these years. And unbeknownst to me, each year I was a different me. And the crazy thing is, most people know that's how it's supposed to work. Whether they acknowledge that that's what's supposed to happen or not, they know it. And every year saw a different me. And that's what it's supposed to be. I just need to make sure that different me is a better me. Tomorrow needs to be a better me. And the day after that needs to be a better me than will be tomorrow. Each day needs to have a better me. And if you aren't doing that, then you are as rotten as you accuse others of being. We're all quick to judge. None of us is willing to look at ourselves and change. So, be better tomorrow than you are today. Be better today than you were yesterday. And continue that pattern. Not the same patterns you have all these years. Start a pattern. Be better now than I was then. Be better tomorrow than I am now. And continue that pattern. Imagine what you'll be in a year. I might be in jail in a year. What about tomorrow? If I go to jail, who is there that I need to meet? Or am I there to get closer to God? I have a bad habit of looking at my situation and saying, oh, wow, look what's happening to me. This hurts and it sucks. I still have anxiety attacks and sometimes minor panic attacks because I think of what I've lost and what I'm losing. I love my kids. I would fight for them. I get panic attacks when I think about the fact that I may not see them again. That I'm going to miss their growing up. My oldest doesn't have but a few years before he's a grown man. And I'm going to miss that. Because 4 hours a month is not a relationship. No matter how quality I make that time, I'm missing their lives. And that hurts me. And regardless of what anybody thinks or what they're trying to convince them, it hurts them too. Because I've always been there. I tried to teach them how to be better than me. Now I'm not there to do it. So it's really hard for me, it's really easy for me to catastrophize the whole thing. And it is a catastrophe. But what can I do about it? What about tomorrow? What about when the kids see what's actually happening instead of what they're being told is happening? I don't want to take the kids from my wife. Those kids need their mother, but they need their father too. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. I have a bad habit of catastrophizing. I have a bad habit of looking at my situation and saying, look what is happening to me, and then hating myself because of it, or hating the situation. But apparently this is supposed to happen. And what's the result? I could say, this is bad. There's going to be that voice, whomever on the side, or not necessarily on the side, saying, maybe. We'll see tomorrow. So, tomorrow, I do what I'm supposed to do. I love my children, even if I can't see them. And I work toward whatever end God has laid out in front of me. If I go to jail, I'm there for a reason. If I don't go to jail, then I'm out for a reason. If I don't make enough money, there's a reason for that. If I make more than enough, there's a reason for that. If I die tomorrow, there's a reason for that. If I don't die till I'm 150, there's a reason for that. I am so blind. And so are you. Open your eyes and look at this world and say, but what about tomorrow? This is happening now. And yet I smile. Because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, I love the way Jordan Peterson looks at all this stuff. I swear that man is a gamer. And I'm talking like full-on fantasy. He wears that two-tone jacket sometimes. I keep thinking of Sheol-Gorath from the Elder Scrolls series. The way he talks, the way he thinks, I swear that man is a gamer. But he calls life a grand adventure. And we are all adventurers and explorers. What an amazing way to look at life. What about tomorrow? Go on that adventure. I don't care if that adventure is going to work and doing whatever your job is. Well, that just means your employer is an NPC. Go get the quest done. Get your experience. That way you can spend it on skill points. And use those skill points to improve a skill. I know that's trivializing a massive undertaking, but if that's what it takes for you to look at life for the adventure it really is, then look at it that way. Get it done. Or as many say here in Texas, get her done. You'll never hear me say that again. Anyway, life beats us down. And yet I smile. I want to see you smiling too. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't even care if I don't like you. I want to see you smile. Enjoy your life. Do right. Change for the better every single day. In a year's time, you could be the best you'd never imagined. Always be better. You have a good night.